Thanks for sharing your garden with us. And now we're going to turn our attention to some of the all-star plants of the Texas Hill Country, the native grasses. And we're joined by Brian and Shirley Loflin, who have written a great book, A Field Guide to the Grasses of the Texas Hill Country. Welcome to Central Texas Gardener.
Thank you.
Well,
Glad
thank
to
you,
be here,
Tom.
Tom.
It's really nice to be here.
Well, it's a real pleasure to visit with you, and one of these great topics, because when I think of the Hill Country, almost every time I think about its long history, and I've learned over the course of the years that it used to be really kind of grass country more than what we think of it today as cedar country.
You're exactly right. In fact, if you take our area here in Austin and divide it by I-35, you know, we've really got two different parts. We've got the Blackland Prairies on the east, and we've got the hill countries on the west. And everybody thinks of that as a hill country forest. Well, originally it was part of the mixed grass and some of the shorter grass prairies.
Right.
And it's just grown and blossomed from there. And of course, a lot of the invasive species that we don't really care to have there have really done well. And it gives us a little bit of a problem.
Well, grasses play a critical role in the environment, and they're really a central part of the ecosystem. And a lot of it has to do just with, and people don't realize this, those really long roots. They really play an important role, don't they?
Well, switchgrass is one of our favorites, and it can have roots as deep as 10, 15, sometimes 20 feet.
I don't think people realize this.
They don't. It's great for soil stabilization.
Exactly. It plays a critical role in holding on to what little soil we have,
Isn't that the truth?
Not only that, but grass roots do a lot of other things too, in addition to holding the soils together. One of the things that they do is create aeration. You know, they create some porosity to the soil so we can have good drainage, and that's important for all of our plants.
Well, and also for us, you think about the flooding and runoff we get sometimes in those places without the grass, right?
You bet. One of the things that's been a problem in some places too is some of the grasses that were selected for actually holding soils together. When the railroads came through, they brought some things that weren't really desirable nowadays. And what we really hope now is that a lot of people really pay attention to natives, because native grasses, I think, are very, very important. Those seeds and those grass plants they've been here for a long, long time, and they help us more than we have to help them, you know, because they like it here. And you can create a lot of good landscaping opportunities with natives that don't require a lot of water, don't require a lot of fertilization, and don't require a lot of mowing and a lot of other care for us, which helps us in many ways.
And on top of that, aesthetically, they're really beautiful. This is one thing I really like about your work in your book, in particular, a great photography of the plants.
Thank you.
But you've actually framed some of the grasses, and actually that's become a kind of a sideline thing. People are so taken by the beauty of them.
Thank you. We generally, I take an herbarium of our work to show people when we're talking about grass what some of them look like up close, and many said, "Are you selling these?" And I thought, well, no, but I can. So that kind of started a little sideline for myself.
Well, they're beautiful forms, and they work so well, blended in lots of different ways in the landscape. But we're going to be talking about that in a little while. But one thing I do want people to know is that a lot of times they think of grass as being just a warm season plant, but these are year-round interest in our area. And I think in particular in the fall, when the seed heads are up, they're stunning.
Well, this is the best time of year actually to take a grass walk. And we take people on grass walks. But you're right, grass is growing year-round in Central Texas. Right when one stops off, we have another one pick up to go right through the winter time to feed the animals and the birds, and right into spring again. Yeah,
and you're referencing another important point is that they're an incredible addition to the wildlife of our area.
Oh, it's an important source of food and habitat for them.
Yeah. So year-round interest, beautiful plants, lots of different kinds that work for us as well. You know, we can talk about turf kinds of grasses that are important for us, but there are also big showy ornamentals. We were talking before we started taping about like Lindheimer's muhly. It's become a staple of the landscape industry, hasn't it?
It really has. You know, with our native grasses, there are so many that provide different colors, different sizes, and different textures that you can use in gardens. And I think that that's really important from a landscape standpoint. Number one, it's a native and it's going to be good, but it can also be pictorial and it can be very beautiful in the arrangement because of all these varieties.
Right, and besides that, the deer don't eat it, right?
You know, most of our natives are deer resistant. You know, deer will eat almost anything when they're really hungry, but what's really interesting is good grasses, especially some of the bigger grasses, they don't generally go for that. They like the little succulent plants and all the nice little tasty things.
You spend $40 on in the nursery.
Right. They will go after the tender shoots, but once grass is established in the garden, they really don't care for it.
Well, that's a bonus for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of the different species that are really beneficial. Now, a lot of people are looking to native grasses now. After the desperate drought last year, people are looking at the water situation in our region, knowing that we have to cut back in our water use. And they're looking to a number of different species that are really going to work well for them in that kind of situation. Lots of blends of seeds now becoming available.
What's really important is, you know, and Shirley alluded to the fact that we take people on these grass educational walks and things. Several years ago, one of those groups happened to be professionals from the city of San Antonio Parks and Recreation. And they said at the time that 60% of their water goes for turf irrigation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's a big number. Now, what's important now is that we have a lot of good varieties and a lot of good mixes that will work well in our area. The folks out at Junction with Native Seeds.
Yeah, Native American Seed, right.
Those guys do a really, really nice job, and they recommend a wide variety, but mostly we have mixes of buffalo grass and blue grama, and a lot of times, these are good even for lawns. And now, they're not going to be a lawn to mow and to putt on, you know, if you're a golfer, but the whole idea is it doesn't require a lot of water, fertilization, or a lot of other care.
Yeah. And also curly mesquite is one that's used in those kinds of settings as well.
It is, and if you want some variation, some of their mixes even have our state grass, which is Sideoats grama, and some of them even have, I think it's a little large, but they have a little bluestem in there. And all those grasses are good, solid grasses that will live and thrive even though we're in a drought.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of shifting your expectation a little bit from that putting green kind of mentality to something that I actually think is aesthetically more pleasing. It's got more texture, more color, you know.
It is. And one of the things that I think we have to get around to getting people to understand from an administrative standpoint, especially in homeowners associations, is that we can do better without having to have a mown lawn. You know, you don't have to have that San Augustine or that Bermuda grass out there.
In the fall, again, for the ornamental species, the seed heads can be among the most beautiful things in the garden.
Little bluestem, big bluestem, switchgrass.
One of your favorites is that feathergrass and the Gulf muhly.
Gulf muhly, I have that in my yard. It looks like cotton candy when the sun's shining through it. Beautiful. We have seep muhly pink in the spring and Gulf muhly blooming in the fall.
Yeah, great plants. Now, a lot of people, as we've already been talking about, are incorporating them into the landscape. And it really works across the board in the landscape, blended with perennial shrubs, just about any kind of situation, right?
Absolutely, you bet. Yeah. One of the things that I think that is good is we have such a variety. We have big tall grasses, we have short grasses, we have grasses in between. They give us color and texture and a lot of interesting shapes throughout the entire year.
Right.
Our little bluestem is really, really cool. It starts off really kind of blue-green. That's where it gets its name. But as it matures through the year, it gets larger and it gets more rusty in color. And it's got these really complex seed heads on there that really works out really well.
Well, there are lots of great species to talk about here. And again, I want to recommend your book, Grasses of the Texas Hill Country, to our friends out there and who are watching right now. Great introduction to the books, really well organized, to the grasses, and very well organized book.
Thank you
so much
Very
for being
good.
on Central Texas
Thank you,
Garden.
Tom. It's enjoyable.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
Nice to have you.
Coming up next is our friend Deb.